At sunrise, a woman in her early 60s sits quietly at a city bus stop. She looks like anyone waiting for the next ride. A neat silver braid, a small bag by her feet. A calm face watching traffic. But there is no bus she plans to take. The bench is simply a safe place to rest for a little while before the city wakes. Her name could be Mary, or Rosa, or Janet. She is one of thousands of older Americans who no longer have a home. Across the United States, more people over 60 are becoming homeless than ever before. It's a change few expected. For decades, people imagined retirement as a peaceful stage of life, a home, savings, and a bit of rest after years of work. Yet for many, that picture has faded. Rising rent, health costs, and limited income are pushing older adults into situations they never imagined. Most of them once had stable lives. They worked in schools, factories, hospitals, or small offices. Some raised children or cared for aging parents. They followed the rules, paid their bills, and trusted the system to protect them later. But when a job ends, when rent increases, or when health problems arrive, even a small setback can start a downward chain. A single late payment can become an eviction notice. A temporary stay with a friend can turn into months of searching for a safe place to sleep. Experts say the number of homeless adults over 50 could double in the next decade if nothing changes. Shelters across major cities, from Los Angeles to Chicago, now report that more than half of their new clients are older than 50. Many sleep in cars or in short-term motels while waiting for affordable housing lists that move slowly. It's not just a big city problem. Small towns face it too, often without shelters at all. The most painful part for many older adults is not the loss of a roof, but the loss of belonging. They hide their situation from relatives or friends out of pride. Some fear judgment. Others simply don't want to be a burden. So they keep their routines, go to the library during the day, and look for quiet corners at night. To the outside world, they still appear independent. Inside, every day feels uncertain. This story is not about blame. It's about understanding a system that wasn't built for people living longer, working longer, and facing higher costs than before. The crisis doesn't look like what many expect. It wears normal clothes, smiles politely, and rides the same bus as you. It could be someone you once worked with or the friendly neighbor who suddenly disappeared. The question we must ask is simple but urgent. How did the richest country in the world reach a point where aging and homelessness now walk side by side? And more importantly, what can still be done to change that? Homelessness at 60 rarely begins with one big event. It often starts with a small change that grows quietly until it becomes impossible to manage. For many older Americans, that change begins with money, or rather, the slow disappearance of it. Imagine a man who worked for 30 years as a delivery driver. When his company closed, he took part-time jobs to make ends meet. His Social Security check covers food and gas, but not rent. The rent on his apartment goes up by a few $100s. He looks for something smaller, but every listing costs more than he can pay. Within a few months, his savings are gone. Then one morning, the landlord posts a notice on the door. Just like that, a lifetime of stability becomes a series of nights in his truck, and situations like this happen everywhere. In many cities, the price of rent has risen faster than wages and retirement income. Medical costs take another piece of the budget. A single hospital stay can drain years of savings. Some older adults help their children or grandchildren and quietly stretch themselves too thin. They never expect that generosity could one day leave them without a home. The job market adds another layer. Many people over 60 still want to work, But age discrimination makes it hard. Online applications ask for digital skills they never needed before. Job listings prefer energetic or tech-savvy candidates. Even for those who find work, it's often temporary or part-time without benefits. Without a steady paycheck, even the smallest surprise, a car repair, a copay, a missed shift, can push them into crisis. There are also invisible barriers. Getting help often means filling out long forms, making phone calls, and keeping track of paperwork. For someone without a stable address or working phone, that can feel impossible. Some lose eligibility for benefits simply because a letter arrived at an old mailbox. Others give up after weeks of unanswered calls. The system, designed to protect, ends up leaving people behind. Pride also plays a role. Many older Americans grew up believing that asking for help meant failure. So they wait. They tell themselves it's temporary. By the time they reach out, the safety nets, rent assistance, vouchers, shelters, are already full. Waiting lists stretch for months. The line between housed and unhoused becomes thinner than a paycheck. Yet behind every statistic is a person with a story that deserves empathy, not judgment. These are people who built roads, cleaned offices, cared for patients, taught children. They did the work that keeps a country running. The challenge now is recognizing that they still matter, not as a number in a report, but as neighbors who need a fair chance to rebuild. If small setbacks can lead to homelessness, could small supports prevent it? That's the question communities across America are beginning to test. And the answers are surprising. To understand this growing crisis, we have to look at the larger forces shaping it. Housing, healthcare, and the economy are the three main walls closing in on older Americans today. And all three have been shifting faster than people can keep up. First, housing. Decades ago, it was possible to rent a modest apartment and still save for retirement. Now, in many cities, the cost of housing has risen far beyond the reach of someone living on Social Security or a small pension. Even older adults who worked full-time for decades often find themselves paying half or more of their income just to keep a roof overhead. When rent goes up, there is no cushion left. Some move in with relatives, but that option isn't always possible. Others downsize until there's nowhere left to go. Second, healthcare. Aging brings higher medical expenses. Prescriptions, doctor visits, mobility aids, surgeries. Even with insurance, co-pays and uncovered costs add up quickly. A small medical emergency can erase a year's worth of savings. And for those without reliable housing, managing health becomes nearly impossible. Medicines need to be kept cool, appointments require transportation, recovery needs rest. Homelessness and poor health form a dangerous loop that traps people who were once stable. Then, the economy. The cost of living keeps rising. But many older Americans' incomes do not. Pensions have become rare. Savings accounts earn little interest. Part-time jobs fill the gap. But they don't offer security. Inflation hits hardest for people on fixed incomes. Every grocery trip feels more expensive. Every utility bill heavier. Some seniors live just one small expense away from losing everything. Experts call it a perfect storm. Each factor alone is hard. Together, they can collapse a life built over decades. When housing, health, and income fail at once, the fall is quick and unforgiving. Yet this storm doesn't make headlines as often as it should. It doesn't fit the dramatic image people expect. It looks ordinary. A retiree selling household items online. A couple moving into an RV, a man quietly sleeping in his car behind a grocery store. The emotional toll is just as real. Many older adults feel invisible. They've done their part, paid their taxes, contributed to their communities. Now, when they need support, they face long lines, short answers, and complicated rules. Some lose hope before help arrives. But across the country, a few cities and nonprofits are learning how to respond differently. They're combining housing and healthcare, offering small grants to prevent evictions, and designing shelter spaces that respect the needs of older adults. These are early experiments, but they point to something powerful. When dignity is built into the system, people recover faster. In some cities, solutions are quietly taking shape. They don't make front-page news, but they make real differences in people's lives. These efforts focus on a simple idea. It's easier and cheaper to keep someone housed than to help them rebuild after losing everything. One example comes from a small pilot program in Arizona. Instead of waiting for evictions to happen, local volunteers and case managers monitor rent payment data and reach out early. If someone over 60 misses a month's rent, the team calls to ask why. Sometimes the reason is simple: a late pension deposit, a small medical bill, a broken car. The program offers a one-time payment or helps negotiate with landlords. The goal isn't charity, it's prevention. And it works. Most participants never enter the shelter system at all. Other cities are converting unused buildings into senior safe housing. Old motels, offices, and even schools are being redesigned into small, accessible units. The focus is not luxury, it's safety and stability. Doors lock securely, bathrooms have rails, lights are bright, and case managers check in regularly. Residents pay rent based on their income. For many, it's the first good night's sleep they've had in years. Medical outreach is another success story. In California, mobile clinics visit places where older adults sleep: parking lots, shelters, and temporary housing. Nurses offer checkups, refill prescriptions, and help reconnect people with doctors. Simple treatments prevent serious illnesses, saving lives and hospital costs. One nurse said, "Sometimes all they need is to be seen, to know someone still cares." These programs share a theme: respect. Instead of treating homelessness as failure, they see it as a situation that can be changed. They simplify paperwork, provide transportation, and train staff to listen with patience. A caseworker might spend an hour explaining a form that could decide whether someone keeps their home. That hour can change everything. Still, the work isn't easy. Budgets are tight, and coordination between agencies takes time. Many older adults are hard to reach because they move often or hesitate to ask for help. But every success proves that prevention and support are not impossible. They just need commitment. If you've ever walked past an older person sitting quietly at a bus stop and wondered about their story, these are the programs that can rewrite it. They can turn a cold bench into a stable apartment, a worried face into a calm smile, a temporary fix into lasting hope. Every successful program has something in common. It starts by listening. When older adults are asked what they need most, their answers are not complicated. They say safety, stability, and respect. Those three words can shape how communities rethink the homeless crisis. Safety means a space designed for age and health. Some shelters have added quiet floors for people over 55. The lights are softer, the beds lower, and there's a small area for medication and glasses. Volunteers help with stairs, and bathrooms are nearby. These small details make a big difference. When people feel safe, they rest. When they rest, they start to rebuild. Stability means having a routine again. In a converted motel in Washington State, residents receive help setting daily goals: attending appointments, cooking meals, or joining a local club. For someone who has lived months without control, simple tasks bring back confidence. One man said, "I finally know what day it is again." That sense of time and rhythm is healing. Respect might be the most powerful part. It means treating every person as a neighbor, not a problem. At one housing site, the front desk greets residents by name. Staff ask before entering rooms. Residents help with chores and decisions about the building. These gestures create ownership. People protect the spaces they feel belong to them. The results go beyond housing. Hospitals report fewer emergency visits. Police respond to fewer calls. Local businesses see more regular customers because residents have money to spend again. What begins as compassion ends as smart economics. Still, not everyone agrees on how to expand these ideas. Some critics argue that programs should focus on personal responsibility first, that people must earn housing. But social workers counter that stability comes before change. Without a safe place to sleep, it's nearly impossible to find work or manage health. Housing, they say, is not a reward. It's a foundation. Age adds another layer. Many homeless adults in their 60s are dealing with chronic pain, mobility issues, or memory problems. A system built for younger populations often fails them. That's why some cities are hiring geriatric caseworkers, specialists who understand how to match support to aging bodies and minds. It's not about special treatment. It's about realistic care. The truth is, these solutions are not complicated. They're just human. A calm room, a friendly voice, a safe routine. These things cost less than emergency care and rebuild dignity faster than any policy paper ever could. And yet, even with clear examples of what works, another question lingers. How can these small, personal victories become the standard everywhere, not just the exception? Scaling up what works is the challenge America now faces. Small programs have shown real progress, but turning them into lasting national solutions takes coordination, funding, and willpower. The question isn't whether we know what helps. It's whether we're ready to do it everywhere. Many cities are experimenting with partnerships. Housing departments are teaming up with hospitals, nonprofits, and local businesses to share resources. Hospitals help because they save money when older adults stay healthy and housed. Businesses support programs because stable communities mean safer neighborhoods and more customers. When everyone benefits, cooperation becomes easier. One promising model is housing and health together. In this approach, local clinics, social workers, and housing authorities operate as one network. When someone at risk of eviction visits a doctor, the clinic immediately connects them with a housing specialist. If a landlord calls about unpaid rent, a caseworker steps in before an eviction notice appears. This quick response keeps people in their homes before crisis hits. Another success story is the tiny apartment movement. Across several states, small clusters of affordable micro-units are being built specifically for people over 55. They're simple. One room, a small kitchen, a safe bathroom. But they offer independence and community. Residents often pay 30% of their income, no more. The cost to build and maintain is far lower than traditional shelters or long-term care. And perhaps most importantly, these buildings blend into regular neighborhoods, reducing stigma. Technology also plays a role. Some cities are testing apps and digital dashboards that track housing availability and connect seniors directly with social workers. With just a phone call or a message, older adults can find out which programs have open spots or which clinic can see them next. For many who struggle with paperwork, a single phone number that actually leads to answers is life-changing. But even with innovation, the work needs human connection. A case manager who knows each resident by name can solve problems no software can. When the rent check is late, that person calls, not to scold, but to help fix it. When someone misses an appointment, they check in. The best systems work because they keep people visible. The results speak clearly. Where housing and health programs collaborate, chronic homelessness among older adults drops. Emergency costs shrink. Communities become calmer, cleaner, and safer for everyone. Each success starts with the same principle: respond early, act locally, and measure outcomes with compassion. Still, not every city moves at the same speed. Some struggle with zoning laws, budgets, or political debates. Progress requires patience, but it also requires pressure from the public. Because when voters care, leaders act. And so the question returns to each of us. Will we keep seeing homelessness as a distant problem? Or as something close enough to fix? One neighborhood, one partnership, one steady door at a time. When you visit a building that works, one designed for older adults who faced homelessness, you realize that hope doesn't look dramatic. It looks ordinary. The hallways are quiet. The air smells of morning coffee, and people greet each other by name. There's no sign outside that says project or program. It's simply home. Inside, life rebuilds slowly. A woman keeps her first plant on the windowsill. A man practices stretching in the hallway before heading to his doctor's appointment. Someone cooks soup and leaves a bowl at a neighbor's door. These are small moments, but they carry deep meaning. After months or years of uncertainty, each routine becomes a milestone. The staff who work here understand that progress happens in everyday steps. A nurse checks blood pressure and reminds residents about refills. A social worker helps with mail or paperwork. Volunteers drive people to the grocery store. None of these actions make headlines, but together they prevent the next crisis. When people have stability, their health improves, their stress drops, and their independence grows. The neighbors outside the building notice too. The local barber waves when residents walk by. The grocery clerk greets them like regular customers. The bus driver learns their names. A building that once stood empty now feels like part of the community again. It's a quiet reminder that inclusion heals both sides, those moving in and those already here. Of course, it's not perfect. Some residents still face health challenges or loneliness. Others struggle to trust that this new life will last. But the difference is that now they have support. When something breaks, someone fixes it. When a form confuses them, someone explains it. When they feel forgotten, someone listens. Stability turns fear into routine. These local examples prove that success is possible. In the past, many believed homelessness among older adults was too big or too complex to solve. But now, real evidence shows that change happens when design meets dignity. A door that locks, a nurse who visits, a staff that cares. These simple pieces form the blueprint of hope. If you've seen a building like this in your city, you've seen the future taking shape quietly. Each one is a seed. The question is, how many seeds can we plant before another generation reaches the same breaking point? Because every empty motel, every vacant lot, and every community center can become a place where the phrase "homeless at 60" stops being common and starts becoming history. The story of homeless at 60 ends not with despair, but with proof that change is possible. Across the country, quiet solutions are taking root. They don't rely on slogans or promises. They rely on people, design, and steady follow-through. Picture the woman we met at the beginning, sitting at a bus stop at dawn. Today, she's in a small studio above a local barber shop. There's a sturdy lock on her door, a chair by the window, and her photo of family on the shelf. She still wakes up early, but now she makes coffee in her own kitchen. Her rent fits her budget, her medicine is stored safely, and the nurse from the community clinic checks in every Thursday. What once felt impossible has become routine. She's not alone. In cities from Phoenix to Minneapolis, programs that focus on prevention, early help, and age-friendly housing are showing results. Evictions drop. Hospital visits decline. Communities spend less on emergency response and more on long-term stability. It turns out that compassion is also cost-effective. What makes the difference is consistency. Every system that works, whether it's a converted motel or a new micro-apartment building, shares the same rhythm. Simple rules, patient staff, and residents treated as neighbors, not statistics. These programs prove that older Americans don't need to be saved. They need to be supported, fairly, respectfully, and with the time they've earned. For those listening, the invitation is clear. Stay involved. If you see an older neighbor struggling, check in. If your city debates new housing plans, speak up for inclusion. If you manage property or work in healthcare, remember that prevention starts with one decision: to help early, not after the fall. Small actions add up. A phone call, a ride, a conversation. The aging crisis no one prepared for is no longer invisible. It's here, and we know what works. The next step is simply to keep doing it, to turn compassion into structure, and structure into permanence. Because when a nation protects its elders, it protects its future. The woman with the silver braid doesn't wait at the bus stop anymore. She walks past it on her way to the grocery store, carrying a reusable bag and waving to the driver she used to know. The same sunlight that once marked her uncertainty now shines through her window at home. It's an ordinary morning, and that, at last, is the extraordinary part.